G'day fellas. Today we're going to be looking at the British semi-fast fortress. This is a flexible strategy that can be used in 1 versus 1 and in team games, and it follows the following build. 3 settlers, 700 wood, 600 wood, 700 gold. From there, there's a couple different ways that you can go, but in this video, what we're going to be doing is that build. Normally, as the British, you do want to take an early trading post, but you don't want to be taking it in age 1. What you want to be doing is using the 300 wood that you start with to instead make manors. So you can see I'm placing the manors to the front of my base. These are going to block any potential raids that come in from the enemies, and then I'm going to make sure that I direct all of my villagers to pop out and come straight onto those hunts. With my scouting pattern, I make sure that I do a small loop around my base, and ideally I'm looking for extra hunts, because the small hunt that I've got to start with isn't going to be enough to last me once I hit the second age. So I need to make sure I start getting those hunts in, or at least scout them out so I know where they are. When it comes to treasures, what I'm ideally looking for are food treasures. They're going to help me age up faster and enable me to get on wood earlier. The second preference is obviously going to be wood, because that's going to allow you to start contributing towards that next house. So now that we've got a little bit of downtime, we're going to talk about what our goals are with this strategy. So our goals with this strategy are to first and foremost age up at a competitive time, normally looking between 4 minutes and 6 seconds and 4 minutes and 36 seconds. The second goal of the strategy is to get our military unit production building down immediately. And the third goal of the strategy is to reach the fortress age with between 40 and 45 settlers at roughly 10 minutes to 10 minutes 30. Once we're in the third age, we're going to be sending falconets, but if we do face early pressure, it means that we're going to be delaying our age up, and we're going to be looking at building more units in the second age, which means instead of sending falconets, we'll be sending cards like 5 villagers and 4 villagers to bolster our economy. Alright, so taking a quick look at the deck, you can see we've got a lot of musket upgrades in here. We've got absolutely no cav. We're not planning on going cav this game, and if we do, it's not going to be very strong cav. I make sure that I only include 1 unit types upgrades in my deck, otherwise I'm not going to have enough space in age 2 or age 3. Once we hit age 3, we're going to be sending those 2 falcons, and then we should be able to branch out either into 8 settlers or 1,000 wood, get those 2 TCs down, and then really start mass producing those settlers. Ideally, as British, you want to be hitting the max villager count before 20 minutes, and that's something that I'm going to aim to do in this game, and something that I aim to do in every single game. I'm going to talk a little bit more about our age up politician after transition. So we're moving everybody over to wood, and we're sending our explorer towards the trade post. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting a trade post down. I've spoken to my teammate. I said, if you're wanting to get a trade post, make sure you put it down in the center of the map. That way that we can defend them a little bit more easily. If we go outside of the map, it's going to be a little bit harder. So we put down the market because I realize that I've got my explorer a little bit too far away from the trade post, and that by the time that I get there, I'm going to have the wood that I need to build the trade post anyway. So in the meantime, I can get the market up. I've got the 100 food so that I can hit Gangsaw. Once I've finished Gangsaw, I'll be able to do hunting dogs. So speaking about the age up politician, so the age up politician that we've chosen is the naturalist. So it provides 2 settlers and 2 semi-fattened cows. Each cow provides 200 food, and if you kill one, the other one continues to fatten while you're eating the first one. So what you'll see me do is I'll make sure that with the 2 cows that arrive, I'll delete one of them immediately and then get 2 settlers that arrived with the cows to start eating it. That way, it's basically the equivalent of aging up with the Philosopher Prince, the 500 food, except that it gathers over the next 3 to 4 minutes instead of within 1 minute. On age up, there's the deleting of the cows, sending 700 wood straight away, and putting down our military production building. It's 4 minutes, 10 seconds, so it's a really quick age up. It's going to be a lot earlier than absolutely everybody else on the map. There's not a lot of civs that are going to be aging up regularly before that time. So the earlier you can get, the better. Now we're shifting vills over to coin. We're going to be building musketeers, and we're making sure with any spare wood that we've got, we're putting down our houses immediately. So the racks comes up. We're going to make sure that we're going to queue some musketeers. So we just need to put 1 in queue. That's all that matters. And making sure that we transition all of the villagers that we had on wood over to food, because that's going to allow us to continue musketeer production, and it's also going to allow us to begin saving for age 3. So when the 700 wood arrives, you're going to gather it with 2 or 3 settlers, doesn't really matter, and you're just going to be putting down manors. There's a couple of different ways that people do it. So there's forward manors that you can do, there's walling manors that you can do. For me, I just prefer to go with line of sight manors, so that's I normally try and put them on the edge of where I've got line of sight, and then avoid putting them too close to each other. That way they just provide line of sight over my direct base, and just around the extremities of my direct base. So because I've got an early age up, I'm able to put pressure on the map. No one's going to have units out this early, which means I'm able to rally my musketeers towards that trading post that I've scouted of the enemy. It's important that with your musketeers or that with your hussars, you know what the enemy's doing and then you react to that. So if your enemy's not doing anything, go and attack them. You know, go put your hussars under their town center, get them to idle, get your musketeers, stick them on a torp, stick them on a trade post, get them moving. Don't just leave them sitting in base. You want to make sure they're out and they're being active. In the event that you do come across a forward base from your enemy or they're playing aggressive civilizations, then by all means stay in your base. That's not a problem at all. When the 600 wood arrives, you're going to gather it with a couple of settlers again. And this time, instead of putting it all into manors, you're going to be putting most of it into manors, but you're going to be making a second military production building. So that means if you've gone hussars, then if you're playing in a team game, then it might be a good idea to put down a second stable. If you're playing in a 1v1, it might be a good idea to put down a barracks. If you've gone to barracks and it's a team game, chuck down a second barracks. If it's a 1v1, chuck down a stable. That 200 wood is there for you to continue to be able to produce units. Once you've sent your 4th shipment, so that'll be 700 coin, it's best to avoid training any further military units and just focus on aging up. Even though I've got enemy presence out at my trade post and 3 hussars that have pushed into my base, I'm going to avoid the temptation of training further units and I'm going to focus on aging up. If you take a look at the units that are training at the moment, you can see that a single musketeer is training from both of my barracks. As I remain unsure about the state of the game and whether or not it's safe to go up to the fortress age, I make sure that I keep a single musketeer in queue, so that if the need arises, I can simply train 5 musketeers at the drop of a hat. As there doesn't appear to be an impending attack, I'm able to continue up to the fortress age without any hassle and cancel those musketeers from training. After I've reached the 3rd age, instead of sending 2 falconets first, I opt to send 8 villagers, and the reason why is because I can see that my opponent, the Swedish, has reached the 3rd age just slightly before me. What this is going to enable me to do is get an economic edge on him, and because he's going to be sending 2 falconets as well, I know that we're going to be defending against those falconets. So what I'm doing is calculating the time that he's going to need to walk across the map, and then sending my 2 falcons. So we might see him sieging our position, but we're still going to have our 2 falconets in time to respond to him. During the transition, we make sure that we kept training musketeers, and as soon as we were up, we began researching the veterancy for our musketeers. If you were making hussars, you'd be doing the exact same thing in this situation, except you might be looking at training some dragoons once you hit the 3rd age as well. One of the less spoken about tactics in Age of Empires 3, it's a rarely seen tactic, and mainly because it needs to be done under parental supervision. So what you're going to do is, it's a flex tactic. You're going to ask your ally to delete their army. That's going to enable you, so here we go, there it goes, delete, boom. That enables you to 2v1, and that's a huge flex. It's just going to psych out your opponent completely, and it's just going to absolutely, you know, they're just going to run away from you, and you're just going to win the game just simply by having one of your teammates delete their armies. So that was not an intentional delete of the army. I believe that was an accident, so shout out to Chopper. Let's get back to the British Fast Fortress guide. So our mid-game composition and late-game composition is going to be musketeers, falconets, and culverin. So culverin obviously are the most important part of this combination because they're going to enable us to take out the enemy artillery. And when there's no enemy artillery, then there's going to be no threat to our musketeers. And the falconet are going to be able to take out any infantry. So what we're going to be doing is working on our economy. So it's 18 minutes and 25 seconds. We've got 91 villages, so we're ahead of schedule. We want to be hitting that 99 villager mark at 20 minutes. It's going to turn our economy into a powerhouse. We're getting our mill upgrades. So with our home city shipments, we're sending our coin upgrade, and we're just turning into an absolute powerhouse of an economy. It's important that you get that 3rd TC up nice and quick. So my 3rd TC is normally going around the 12-minute mark, the 13-minute mark, and then just pumping out settlers the entire time. So just remember, kids, the British military composition is a lot like a mullet. Business is in the front, parties at the back. So that means keep your musketeers with their business costumes up in the front, and your party cannons at the back, firing away, taking out the enemy infantry from behind. And you seal yourself an absolute victory, not even close on that front. So after repelling that attack, aging up to the 4th age, now comes the fun part. Not so fun for the enemy. That's where you're just going to start running units into the enemy base, and just, taking shots or whatever you can find. In this situation, I love mixing in Grenadiers. Grenadiers are one of my favourite units in Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition. They're absolute beasts. So I just chuck some in, when I'm doing my late game raids, and it just absolutely shreds through any buildings. And it's at this point where the enemies resign because it becomes apparent to them that there's not really a lot that they can do. Over the next week, I'm going to be covering fast fortresses for all of the civilizations in Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition. But if there's a specific strategy that you'd like to see, I encourage you to leave a comment down below, as I do go through the comments and enjoy reading the feedback that you guys provide me. Thank you for watching.